Welcome to Fight City Gym Talk. I'm here with Mike Walthius. He came into my gym how long ago?
I think I came in 2020. It was June of 2020.
So we're coming up on 2 years? Mm-hmm. Okay. So here's the thing about Mike. Holy cow. Not that he isn't a beast of a man right now. You can just look at him. The reason I'm wearing my hoodie is because Mike makes me look bad. I actually don't like standing next to him. He's a beast of a man. Matter of fact, there's a picture of him on our wall where he's just shredded throwing a punch, and it's his back. And people keep asking me like, dang, Eric, is that you? And I'm like, yeah. So, sorry, Mike. But when my hair is trimmer, everybody calls us brothers because we look crazy similar.
Yeah, we're both from Neanderthal lineage.
So, and he's Walthius?
Walthius, Mike Walthius.
I'm Walleen, so there's probably some sort of Viking lineage behind it. So at the end of the day, he comes in the gym a couple years back, and you weighed what?
So I think I weighed 248 when I first came in here.
248. And there wasn't any fat on him. Like, he was scary looking. Now, tell us a little bit. You hold the Utah State deadlift record.
So I hold, in fairness, I didn't do it in a total, which is your bench, squat, and deadlift. I did deadlift only, but it is in the raw 242-pound class. Mm-hmm. The great thing about that weight class is I didn't have to cut weight because I naturally walked around at 245. So all I had to really do was go weigh in, and then I would usually up my sodium intake the night before. I'd eat a steak typically with like some carbs.
So I didn't realize that. So they give you a day to weigh in, like in fighting?
Yeah, kind of like in fighting. The weight classes aren't as hard to make because it's like I think it's 222. I can't remember now. It's been a while, but 222, and then there's like the 205 or something.
Got it.
And then there's 242. So, and then after that is like 268.
Yeah.
So it's really not that. It's not difficult unless you're like kind of one of those people that teeters back and forth between. Right. And also, you have to be conscientious when you're in deciding which weight class and powerlifting you're going to go, because it feels good to be lighter at 222, but then it also feels good to have weight on you because you push more weight. But also when you get up into the upper weight classes, like if you go 265, you got to keep in mind that there's guys that are willing to cut weight down to 265. Then just roll into competition monsters. Just 290, like blow. I mean, maybe just not monsters. 290, but yeah, just blow up. So
yeah. So, did you say what your record was? How much it was?
Yeah. So the raw class deadlift only 242.
But how much weight?
782 pounds.
782 pounds. So the thing is, I used to compete in weightlifting in high school just for fun because everybody on the football team did. That's a ridiculous number. So that's crazy. I mean,
it didn't come easily. Like I can't remember. I think it was winter 2018, I think. I tore my pec. It was October of 2018. I tore my pec. What I really did was rupture the tendon right here. That's why it kind of slumps a little bit.
Without a shirt on, he's all ripped up. You can see that.
But there is a gap right there, and I did my physical therapy and things like that. But the doctor said that for the rest of your life, you probably won't be winning any bodybuilding contests. It's just not as symmetrical anymore. Right. So I've kind of accepted, and there's some stuff that I can do to get rid of the fascia tissue and all that stuff. But for now. It kind of is the way it is, but I ruptured the tendon and also tore a little bit of the pec muscle itself in turn. Wow. I got very lucky though. I didn't tear any of the bicep heads, which is a pretty common occurrence apparently. Right. And I'm no doctor obviously, but I had to overcome a lot of stuff to get to that. Happened 2 days literally before my first ever powerlifting competition.
So did that have anything to do with the deadlift, or were you bench pressing? How did you do it?
I think it had to do with and I'll be transparent. Something I did want to talk about today is like I have a history of vices, and I'm not perfect, and I was doing a lot of steroids at the time.
Right. I just want to say congratulations, man. I think steroids, it's so easy to just kind of brush it under the rug, pretend like it's not there, pretend like you're not doing it. So the fact that Mike can come on here and just say it, like, that's a huge step, and like, congratulations. I've just seen so many people pretend like it's not there, and it's like, come on. But
Well,
anyway,
there is you know, in being fully transparent, you know, testosterone replacement therapy, that's more for recovery.
Yeah.
And because I honestly I screwed my body up.
See you guys later.
we'll see you.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you, bro. I screwed my body up when I was younger because of the abuse of steroids and mostly. So when I was like, so we'll get back to the deadlift. And sorry, I'm getting off topic, but
No, that's fine.
it's something important I want to bring up. So when I was younger in the military, I did a lot of pro hormones, and this was back in the day when you could buy like H-Drol and Anadrol.
Got it, yeah.
You could buy D-Ball just like pretty much off any website. Now you kind of have to go probably hunt for it. I've been out of the game for a little bit, but I think that because I didn't understand your post-cycle therapy, the fact that you have to take your, depending on what you're taking, anti-estrogen. So for a while, I actually had a little bit of gynecomastia. It's basically where there's too much estrogen buildup because your body's trying to account for the amount of free-floating testosterone that's in your body. So all of a sudden, your estrogen levels spike and they overcompensate. And so in turn, you can actually get like what feels like a marble behind your nipple. It's really bad stuff. And so anyways, I think that because I didn't understand how to properly cycle on and off, because that's the key word. A lot of people will just stay on pro hormones year round. And, you know, teach their own if that's what you want to do, but be willing to, for the young people out there, just be willing to accept the consequences. Like if you're not cycling on and off, you know, it can get tough and you can end up dying from a heart attack. And we'll get into that later.
These are things you don't really want to mess with, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. But
And we'll get into that later because I was going to, and I'll wrap that up into getting back to the powerlifting thing. I had a really long journey into quitting powerlifting, and there's reasons why, and I'll talk about that in a second. But
I gotta get going.
okay, we'll see you.
to get to that 782, it was not without difficulty and without hardship and without obstacles. Aside from the pec tear that I did 2 days before my first competition, I had to rehab from that. Now, I did something that went against every doctor's advice. I actually had the surgery to reconnect the, I think it was on December 25th. It was pretty quick. They got me in there at the U. I went in with Dr. Grice at the clinic, the orthopedic clinic up there. And, is it orthopedic? I can't
Sounds
remember.
about right.
Yeah. So I had the surgery in December and I competed like that May or April.
Cow.
And I deadlifted 715. My doctor freaked out when I did it because when you tear your pec, you're pretty much in a sling. Then after the surgery, you're in a sling because you have stitches that literally prevent you from bending out your elbow or, you know, winging out. Yeah. You can potentially tear the stitches right out if you lift, even just lifting your elbow in a swift motion. I actually ended up almost tearing out one of the stitches, and it was really painful. I was just showering one day, and it's really miserable because you take the sling off and you're like this in the shower trying to get under the armpit. It stinks. And so I deadlifted to 715. Then and then I think I did 3 more competitions after that. I can't remember. I did, because I went up to 740 something, then 762, and then the 782. The 782 one, I said the hell with it, I'll go for 792, and I think I dropped it. And the reason, by the way, for those of you who don't know out there, why I'm saying weird odd numbers is they go by kilos when they load the plates, if you didn't know out there. So yeah, I went up to the 782, and then I wanted to talk a little bit right now about the spiritual side of things.
Right. So if you remember, sorry to cut you off, but on my show, I'm always going to try to come back to these same points: spiritual, mental, physical, financial. Because it's just me personally, I feel like those are the 4 things everyone should be concerned about. So here we go. Mike, spiritual. Go on.
So spiritual, I faced a little bit of death of the ego kind of thing after I lifted the 782. I just didn't really feel good about myself. I quit powerlifting. This is the first time I'm ever really talking about this in public or to anyone, but minus a couple of close friends. But I did not like the ego that powerlifting brought out in me. It fed this beast that was not a good beast, and I almost let how much weight I lift become my identity. And I'm not going to get into that. That's for the powerlifting community that's active to comment on that. But
well, honestly, guys, I think my last fight might have been 2 weeks ago. And it's weird because like when you get so entrenched into a sport, it really does become your identity.
yeah,
And so here I am.
for better or for worse.
Yeah, like people always say, like, do you still fight? And my whole life, yeah, I still fight. I love fighting. And I was like, I'm just coaching now, and it's just not. It's not as cool. It's just you get this identity with these sports, and it really is hard to walk away from. I'm no Tom Brady, but I know he's probably suffering through the same thing right now. There's a 60 Minutes interview where he mentioned his biggest fear was walking away from football, and that was like in 2005. Look it up, 60 Minutes, Tom Brady, 2005. But like his biggest fear was retiring, and for you to walk away from your passion, deadlifting, and for me to walk away from fighting, like I get it. Like it's tough to walk away from that identity that you attach with it.
Well, and see, that's where I'm gonna get like emotionally raw about it. But I powerlifted not because I liked it necessarily. It's because it made me feel good.
Yeah.
And I was trying to fit in with the community and trying to find a home somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I went with the powerlifting community and.
You're sinking. You're getting smaller than me. See if
Oh,
your chair will pop up. There we go.
All right. I look like a midget next to you.
I'm not that much bigger than Mike.
So I was just looking for validation, and man, I just thought I would find like a home in powerlifting, and I met some of the best people ever. My coach Ty Nickel is like one of my really great friends still, and some other people like John Mazza, Chris McGrail, the chairman of the USPA here, and they're all good people. For me though, personally, where I messed up is I was trying to appease others, and through that like get validation to make myself feel better.
Yeah.
But what I found instead was I actually gave birth to an ego of again letting how much weight I lift be my identity.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, and like I said, this is for the powerlifting community. I'm going to stay out of it, but in my opinion, I think that there's a lot of people who let it become their identity, and then that's leads to injuries, and like this is the year, every year this is the year. And then I looked at some of the veterans that lift into their 50s, and I just didn't want to be injured all the time. And now I'm not saying that's why they got injured, but I saw myself getting injured because my ego would just keep saying like, I want to go bigger, I want to go bigger, I want to go bigger. And all I was going to do was like keep doing roids and like not cycling properly and getting injured. You know, frankly, the reason why I messed up my pec is because I was an idiot that week and I was training chest like 3 different times.
Right.
So like a couple days before that, I was doing like very heavy dips, which you're not supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be doing a deload week or whatever.
Yeah.
I can't even remember anymore. But you're supposed to do a deload week and take it easy. Keep it warm. But I mean, so I just had a death of the ego kind of after, and I decided that I needed to leave powerlifting because it was for my mental health, that I needed to realize that there's more to life than being big and being strong. For me personally, I'm not talking about anyone else. There's other people that can be big and strong and be mentally healthy. For me, it was not a good look. So spiritually, I decided that I needed to try out something that, well, one, I wanted to always be a boxer.
Yeah.
I will get passionate, but when I was a little kid, I loved Muhammad Ali. Like that is my idol. And I get emotional about him because when I was a kid, I grew up in a very abusive, emotionally and physically an abusive household. And when I would watch Muhammad Ali and all these great boxers and like, you know, Sugar Ray, it was like just watching like sweet poetry, sweet like art just happening before you. And my escape was to watch like old, like anytime I could turn on ESPN Classic and watch just like old boxing fights with like Muhammad Ali. I loved it. I would go to the library. I remember one of the first books I ever checked out from the library when I got into boxing was I went and checked out this book of poetry, and it was like all of Muhammad Ali's like, like float like a butterfly, sting
Yeah.
like a bee. Your hands can't hit what your eyes can't see. And it was just this book that was compiled. It was like that thick, and it was just. But what was cool is with all the words and the quotes, it had like pictures, all the iconic photos. And so I used to read that, that book, and then I went on to another one, and I read about all these boxers and like, Roberto Duran and stuff. And I just wanted to be a boxer.
Yeah.
So after I quit powerlifting, boxing was that one thing that would, I think for me, get me mentally tougher, where I don't seek validation. And also, I thought that boxing would be a good sport for me because it was humbling to walk in this gym.
Yeah.
I remember I sparred you one of my first days walking in the gym, and it was a wake-up call. I was guilty of that mindset. I was one of those people that was guilty of thinking that muscle equals something. And sure,
Fighting, yeah.
sure it equals a power punch or two here and
Yeah.
there. But like when you first sparred me, I mean, I got pieced up and I was gassed in like 20 seconds. So,
Well, I want to touch on this. You mentioned how you felt like powerlifting was kind of like bringing you down.
yeah.
But I want to kind of be fair to all sports and also be fair to powerlifting as well. I promise there are people out there where like powerlifting is keeping them together, keeping them mentally, physically, spiritually strong. And that the reason I say that is because I know that so many people have like just these chaotic, crazy lives, and their sport is what pulls them out of that chaos.
Yeah.
And they get to relax, they get to unwind, they get to chill with their friends, talk with people. And whether they're competitive in the sport or whether they're just doing it as a hobby, these sports are absolutely essential to keeping people spiritually, mentally, and physically, of course, but in a long, roundabout way, financially sane. And so, but let me also now go back to kind of the dark side of boxing and fighting at that matter as well. So I guess I think where these sports become they kind of get their dark side is when people become obsessed
Yeah.
and they can't hang it up. And that's kind of what I'm fighting right now. Like, I want to be obsessed with fighting and I want to continue to fight. Like I literally keep thinking to myself, like, I should just take just one more fight, and it becomes like this addiction. Like maybe my next fight will get me on that winning streak to hit me in the UFC like I've always dreamed of.
Yeah.
And so there is that dark side where the sport can honestly become an addiction.
Yes.
And so now we got two sides of the sports, right? We've got the good side where you got a guy that's just in this awful maybe relationship at home. He's also got a dead-end job, and he needs something to kind of get a little spunk in his life, a little excitement in his life. And that's why I think these sports are so powerful and good. And then we get to the dark side where people become obsessed with them.
Yeah.
And I've seen people who have been boxing way too long
Yep.
and fighting way
Bernard
too long.
Hopkins.
Yeah, this happens in all sports. And I think as we talk about spiritual, mental strength, it's like, when is it time to hang it up? When is it time to, where do we get the biggest bang for our buck? We get what we want out of the sport, but we also don't get injured and hurt on the backside as we're chasing these dreams.
Yeah, and a perfect example if we're talking about fighting, but like Bernard Hopkins, like his last fight when he got knocked out of the ring, you can see the evidence there, because when he was on his backside, he was like looking up at the boxer and still talking smack.
Yeah.
And that's that fighting spirit that makes it hard. You could tell he's obsessed with it because even while he was old and knocked on his back,
Yeah.
he was looking up out of the ring, knocked out of the ring, still talking smack, because that's that fighting spirit that we all have when we reach an obsession with something. And so, C.T. Fletcher in powerlifting his documentary was called My Magnificent Obsession.
Yeah.
But for me, the obsession became an unhealthy obsession.
Absolutely.
And so the reason I came into boxing, I'll be transparent with you, Eric. I never had the guts to step in a ring or to actually go do it. I always felt insecure and embarrassed that I'm going to walk in this fight gym, and the thing I didn't realize, Eric, is like one muscle doesn't matter, all that other stuff aside. But all that aside, it's when I stepped in the gym, I didn't realize that everybody starts somewhere.
Yeah.
And I had known that fighters are some of the most nice, kindest people, very like calm people. But especially when I walked in the doors of this gym, I immediately saw that not one person was making fun of me when I tried the speed bag for the first time. Not one person was making fun of me because Eric pieced me up in, my first time sparring. Nobody was laughing.
Right.
In fact, when I came out of the ring, there were so many people that were more experienced than me willing to jump in and say, like, hey, man, you need to keep your, stay on the phone. You need to do this. So that's why I came into boxing. And spiritually, it's done, we'll get into the physical aspect.
Yeah.
But spiritually, it's done so much for me. It's got me more calm. It's helped me develop an outlet for my stress and for my anxiety. I have clinical anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, and I also suffer from clinical depression. To be transparent, I take medication for it, and it's okay to admit as a grown man that you have like some weaknesses. Don't use it as a crutch, but it's okay to like say that you're not like perfect person. And
Absolutely.
so that's what boxing's given me spiritually. And I do believe in a higher power, just like you believe. You're a member of the LDS church. I grew up LDS. I went on a mission. I do have my belief in a higher power, and I feel like I have my own version of my higher power that I believe in. But I do believe that boxing, in a way, as crazy as it might sound to some out there, because it's just a sport, some might say that. But for me, it's brought me closer to my higher power because it's made me more in tune with my body and what frustrations if I go a week without hitting the bob stand at my house at the very least, I can feel all this frustration build up in my shoulders and in my neck, and it's tense.
Yeah.
As soon as I come in, like tonight we sparred for a couple rounds. As soon as I'm done, I'm able to talk about these things with you.
Absolutely.
And I feel calm and stuff. So
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I don't think I can ever give up sparring. I love sparring. It scratches the itch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it also strokes the ego a little bit as well, where it's like, okay, I love being in the big stage. I love getting my hand raised. I love the big paychecks. It's all great, but at the end of the day, like, I do love fighting.
Yeah.
Like I was even telling Tim, I was like, dude, even if I knew I was going to lose my next fight, I still kind of want to do it because I love the rush.
Yeah.
It's like bungee jumping. You get addicted to bungee jumping. What's up, Mafu? Bungee jumping, skydiving. It's that adrenaline. It's that like natural drug that just kind of flows through your veins that you can only get by doing it. And so like I do feel like I'm kind of addicted to fighting, and I'm trying to get away from my addiction.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I love sparring. I mean, I love sparring just for the fact that after it's done, it sucks when you're getting hit. Like I talk to my two roommates and about boxing sometimes, and it's really cool. By the way, ever since I've moved in my new house with my two roommates, I've really gotten them into boxing too.
Right.
And now they really love watching it, and they're always asking me now, like, when is the next fight? When's the next big fight? And the thing I tell them is, like, when they're asking, like, I've been asked by my one roommate before, what's it like getting punched, basically? And I'm like, well, it's an acquired taste. It's like nobody walks into the gym and says, like, oh gosh, I've really just been wanting to get hit in the schnoz today. But it is an acquired taste, and then, it sucks while it's happening, but then after it's done, you feel so accomplished, you feel so calm. When your breathing finally gets back to normal, and you've been sitting in your... I always have a moment of clarity when I sit in the parking lot, like, I sit in the driver's seat and I just kind of have to like let it settle in.
Right.
But it feels so good afterwards. You feel accomplished, and just like powerlifting, like, I don't want to bash powerlifting. Like, there were some good things about it. It kept me disciplined to an extent, like it kept you on track. But boxing, even more so for me, has made me even more disciplined.
Yeah, and I think people need to look at these sports as it's a tool. You know what I mean? Like honestly, doctors should be prescribing sports to people. Like, you're sitting in this doctor's office, and they're saying, "Well, what's your problem? You can't sleep at night. You can't do this. You don't have an appetite, or you're eating too much." Like, doctors should be like, "What are your interests? What's this, that, the other? You should be doing this sport. Or maybe you should try this sport." Because like these sports have these sports and hobbies. There's so many good things attached to them. But we also did talk about the dark side of it, and so like there's this kind of yin and this yang between how do we get the most out of this tool? The tool is the sport. How do we get the most out of it?
Yep.
And I always tell young fighters, we all want to be a world champ, but the reality is there's only so little opportunity for you to be that guy. So we all need to look at these sports and basically ask ourselves, like, what do I want out of it, and how am I going to get there? And the world championship, we'd all love to be that guy, but maybe we just need to try to do it regularly to ease some anxiety. Maybe for a bucket list, we take a couple real fights. Maybe for someone, they're saying, hey, I want to actually like be a pro one day. And if you're decent, maybe a pro winning record. And so like, there's a lot of different levels that we can take all these different sports. And it's easy to get obsessed and just be like, I want to be the best, want to be the best, want to be the best. But at the end of the day, we're really, and I hate to kind of talk about the like, we're not all going to, we can't all be the best. We just can't.
Well, the reality is, Canelo is like probably a 1 in a billion talent. Yeah. I mean, realistically, I mean, right now Canelo is like my idol. Yeah. I have my top 3 boxers. It's pretty much Kambosos Jr., Canelo, and Tyson Fury. And wow. I mean, it's like I watch these guys, but what I do know, though, aside from the saying, like, there's only a 1 in a million chance, what I do know is it's better to go in the ring and give it your best shot than to be 80 years old and be thinking, like, man, I wish I would have at least, like, tried one amateur
Absolutely.
fight. Or
yeah.
And that's where I decided to come in the gym.
Yeah.
It was for spiritual reasons, for mental reasons, for mental health reasons, but it also was because I was 30 years old when I came here. Yeah, 30 years old when I came here. And I wasn't getting any younger, and I knew that if I get to 40 and I hadn't started training by then, like I could have started.
Yeah.
It's never too late to start boxing. Or, maybe after a certain point when you're 55, it's probably not good to spar or whatever.
Yeah.
But to me, I was just like, I need to start training now. I need to start trying now because I don't want to be that guy who idolized all these boxers, and then all of a sudden I'm watching some Canelo fight when I'm 45 and be like, shoot, I should have tried.
Yeah.
I should have tried. That's the biggest regret that I was afraid of. So actually coming in here, yes, there's only a 1 in a billion chance that I could become a Canelo, but I do know that I'm gonna die trying or close to that.
Right. Yeah, and I don't want to come across as mentally weak, like, oh, it's such a astronomical number that like it's not even worth trying. No, I think we all need to have like our dream goal, and then settle below that as like a realistic goal. And so when I got into fighting, I told myself, first things first, I want to be a world champ, multimillionaire. Then I was like, but if that doesn't happen, it would also be really cool to just be a coach, maybe own a gym, own a promotion, something like that. And so here I am. Oh man, I've been wrestling and doing all that most of my life. Gone fighting for last, I want to say my first MMA fight was 12 years ago or something. And it's kind of all gone full circle. And like, I hate the fact that I never became a world champ, but I was able to make a career out of this. So I am like super stoked on that. But I guess what I'm getting at is we all need to have that, like the dream goal, the realistic goal, and constantly kind of stay focused on those goals. And at which point, when do we walk away? Because I'm in this at the age 38, where if I don't hang it up, I see that I can start entering that dark side of fighting, where I'm just taking fights to take fights, and I'm not really training anymore. I'm just crossing my fingers, hope I get 4 or 5 lucky knockouts put together, and maybe I go be in the UFC again. So,
yeah, it's I think that it's important to have balance in everything and like moderation in everything. There's days where I know when I'm going really hard and I'm on track with my boxing training and things like that. There are days though where I recognize, okay, I probably should just do active rest today.
Yeah.
Just moderation and everything, and that's where good sleep comes in. I haven't always been the best with that, but I at least try to get 6 to 7 hours, things like that. Like, it just balance, get good sleep, have some of your active rest time, do something active, go out with my dog and play fetch at the park, spend time with family. I think as long as you're doing those things, you can prolong your boxing career so much more.
Absolutely.
Not just because physically you're taking care of your body, but also like mentally, spiritually, you're taking care of all the other stuff.
Right.
So that you leave room for growth and, I think you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. But let me get right to the point on a question. And let's go down the list here. We mentioned spiritual. Let's talk about mental. How has boxing helped you become mentally tougher?
So mentally tougher. First off, it just physically. What's it? Mentally, physically tough. And what I mean by that is like taking a punch, being tough enough to take a punch. It's helped me get tougher, like just physically. Like,
yeah, but I want to kind of maybe set this stage like, okay, here's physical. Physical is 780-pound deadlift. Physical is like run a mile in less than 6 minutes. So there's a lot of ways to be physically strong.
right.
My definition of my definition of mental toughness is being able to set a goal and mentally overcome all the challenges that's between you and that goal.
Yeah.
So being able to just mentally just tackle this problem, this problem, this problem. Physically, you have to show up and do it, but mentally, it's like, okay, I know there's 5 problems ahead of me, but I got to take this one first, then jump to that one, then jump to this one. So mentally, I want to kind of continue to talk about like, how is boxing helping you become mentally tougher?
Boxing's helped me become mentally tougher because it's forced me to not back down.
Right.
Once I asked Eric tonight if he would spar me, that's where I have grown tremendously, like in my mental toughness. Because once I've made my mind up, like I'm going to go up to Eric tonight and ask him if he wants to spar, I have made it a point to make a rule in my internal self that I am not going to back down from that. If I have committed within myself that today I'm going to go ask Eric to spar, which I did decide that a few hours before I came in, because I think about these things like I need to start sparring more often because I was slack in the last couple months, which I was. Boxing has forced me to just face the lions, that just go headstrong at it.
I didn't realize that when you asked me to spar, I was kind of thinking like, it was kind of an open-ended question, like, Eric, could we spar? And I was kind of busy, and I was like, I could right now. And he's like, yes. And so I didn't realize that you were kind of overcoming these
I'm overcoming these obstacles of just like asking people, and that's the other thing that's made me mentally tough. To answer your question, actually, it's not backing down from a challenge or a goal that I set for myself, and being scared. It's not only that, but it's like facing people, whether it's sparring or whether it's like asking Tim for some help. Asking people that are better than me and have more experience in boxing and fighting.
I haven't brought that up yet, but I think that ability to be humble and be like, you know what? People might make fun of me. People might think I'm stupid. People might think I'm ridiculous. But whatever the consequence is, I don't really care. I'm still just going to go ask the question. I'm still just going to go see how this works. And I think there's a lot of mental toughness in that, like, whatever it is, I don't care the consequence, but this is the question I have. This is the thing I want to talk about. This is what I'm pursuing. So that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you and Tim Carroll, for those of you who don't know out there, he's like our resident boxing coach.
He's been my boxing coach for the last 10 years probably.
And he's been mine for the last 2 years. And alongside from the advice that Eric gives me, Tim has really, really helped me come along. I had no head movement. I mean, I've always been an athlete, but when you saw me coming here, I was stiff. I couldn't loosen up. I still struggle with that, where I forget to breathe when I'm sparring, but I've come a long way. And so with the help of people that are better, and even sparring Tim, I weigh 205 right now. Tim weighs 140, 150 probably.
Ballpark 65 on a bad day, maybe.
Yeah. He still pieces me up, and but that's how you get mentally tough. It's challenging yourself. Just go in there. Ask people that are better than you. There's nothing that will humble you faster than fighting somebody that's better and getting a taste of that dojo coffee when you get punched in the face. Have yourself a cup of that, because that's what helps you get better. And then, of course, people ask me, like, why would you want to get punched in the face? It forces you to, like, okay, I need to move my head.
Yeah.
Or else I'm going to just keep getting punched in the face.
Yeah.
So, to answer the question, that's how it's helped me get mentally tougher. Yeah. Being around people that are better than me.
And I could ask the same thing about powerlifting and say, how did powerlifting make you mentally tougher? And it's going to be a different answer, but it's going to like all these, I guess what I'm getting at is all these sports and hobbies have so many good things about them. Like we really need to figure out as people, how do we dissect the very best out of whatever it is we're doing and not get caught up into the obsession and the addiction of what these things can become.
Well, one thing powerlifting helped me that I carried over, powerlifting that I carried over to boxing, is when you're powerlifting, you have to push through so many minor injuries. Like you're always, well, at least for me, my psoas muscle was always on fire.
Yeah.
That is actually a physical reason why I quit powerlifting. My psoas was just always inflamed. The day after I lifted 782, I literally felt like a Mack truck had rammed me over and then put in reverse and rammed me over again.
Man.
And so, but you have to push through, like you're always going to have tweaked hamstrings, tweaked hips, hip thrusters, your feet, your ankle joints are always going to hurt. Everything hurts. So one thing that I did carry over from powerlifting is I knew how to push through injury. So when I came into boxing, I can still spar even though my legs are sore or my ankles hurt, because I've been through that before and I know how to take care of it. I know the remedies I need to go in and just get it done. Just keep pushing and keep sparring, keep hitting them. I mean, there's been so many days where my lats are just like, I could barely lift my elbow above here. But I just go in, I know I have to hit hits with Tim, and I just do it, and I just push through. And there's so many aspects that you could take. Powerlifting, you have to be mentally tough, because when you're lifting 782 pounds and you're at the halfway point at your waist, I mean, you have to be tough and just say, I'm going to push my hips through and rotate all the way through, and boom, that's it. And
so it's really obvious. So, sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought. Powerlifting brings a lot of different aspects of mental toughness, also a lot of different aspects of physical toughness. So we talked about the mental toughness of boxing and how that's helping you improve. We also talked about the mental toughness of powerlifting. Let's now go to physical toughness, because there's obviously a difference between the physical toughness you acquire when you're picking up a lot of heavy things and the physical toughness you acquire when you start both putting out punches and dodging punches. So what's the biggest kind of physical thing that you're surprised by, where you're like, man, I thought I had it, but like I brought this strength into boxing and it's not there at all?
Well, that's been the goal of mine, is like, okay, we know the strength's there.
Yep. Right.
So I've always had like bigger thighs and really good lower body strength. I attribute most of my ability to deadlift a lot of weight to, I've always had pretty strong legs and good hamstrings. Knock on wood, I've never had knee problems or anything like that. And I've also had strong like hip thrusts. So like I know that the mechanics not the mechanics, excuse me. That's what I've gotten better at in boxing, is the mechanics of throwing a punch and things like that.
The ability's there.
The ability's there, the athletic ability, the strength is there. Now we got to figure out, okay, how do we add in endurance and use that strength, utilize that lower body strength to twist through a punch, throw your body all the way into it. So that's where I'm still struggling, is I'm still stiff, because you're doing very singular planes of motion in deadlifting, or at least, in deadlifting it's just straight up, like, but boxing is just like, you're always moving around, you're always rotating, you're always pivoting.
And we're kind of going through these stages of progression. You're shrinking again.
Oh boy.
So we go through these stages of progression where it's like, when you first take your first amateur boxing bout here in Utah, your first fight's usually just 1 minute rounds. Yeah. And then as you get 10 or more fights, you start getting to a minute 30, 2 minutes if you're in the Golden Gloves. I can't remember. It seems like there's a place for amateurs where they're doing 3 minute rounds. But yeah, I mean, we got to be strong and if we ever talk about pro, you'll start out pro going 4 3 minute rounds, and then eventually 6 3 minute rounds, and the end goal is to get into them 12 round fights. That's a lot of fighting. Well,
one thing I didn't notice or I didn't realize until I came in here is more muscle requires oxygen output.
Yeah.
Right? So when I came in here, that's why I was smoked. I mean, you can be an Anthony Joshua and weigh that much, but for me, I decided that the best optimal shape that I could be in was go down to the lower 200s, pick up my cardio. I can still be bigger, but I just chose my health, also my internal health. Like, I looked big and I looked cut when I came in this gym, but my insides were not healthy. I did not have good cardio. I'm willing to bet that my red blood cell count was crazy. My iron count was crazy. Everything was out of whack. Now when I keep track of my resting heart rate, it's a lot better. I'm more calm.
Yeah.
I don't get, I mean, sure, it was cool to be 245 and like be a little shredded, but when I was going upstairs, I just felt so winded. And so those are, right now that's the main goal, is like, how can we transfer the things that I took from powerlifting and convert it into a healthy boxing lifestyle, and also like put myself in the most optimal shape where I can win fights, which is
Absolutely.
right now I'm 205. I have lost 40 pounds at least since I walked into this gym. And
that's not 40 pounds of fat. That's 40 pounds of muscle. Like, he was shredded.
And that's where it's been humbling, is I came in here and quickly Eric and other people in this gym made me realize that muscle isn't everything. Calm down a little bit. And with that, my ego has died a lot. Like, I come in here, I'm very humble and I'm open and receptive to what Tim has to say, to what Eric has to say, Brandon, Russell, everybody. And so for me, this has just been the best experience the last 2 years. Like, I've just grown so much as a person, and I still have a long way to go. But the 40 pounds I've lost, I mean, I cannot tell you, like, it's been so good for me mentally to suck. Like, it was hard to lose all that muscle. It was hard. But I decided to give it up, and now that I'm on the other side of it, I'm so grateful for my health, because now I'm thinking about if I do end up having kids or things like that, I can be around to be a part of their life because I'm healthy.
Right.
So
we talked about that. What we haven't touched on yet is financial. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people don't see the financial benefit to fighting unless they're winning multi-$1,000 paychecks. But there's a lot of benefits, a lot of financial benefits. And you see this more in the jiu-jitsu community, if you ask me. The thing is, to be a part of a gym for, let's say it takes 10 years to get a jiu-jitsu black belt, you basically have to have enough financial stability to pay your dues. And you're not becoming a black belt for 10 years. And so I see this, a lot of people, when we're talking about jiu-jitsu, I always tell them, like, hey, when I see a black belt in jiu-jitsu, sure, I'm looking at a guy that knows a lot of moves,
right,
but I'm also looking at a guy that has his ducks in a row and has had his ducks in a row for the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. And so the hard thing about boxing is we don't see that often 10-year commitment to get the next belt, to get the next belt, to get the next belt. And so, but it's still there, because you can't really be a part of a gym or a team without having that, like, okay, I got to make sure that my finances are in order if I want to get the next, like, pair of Reyes boxing gloves. I got to make sure my finances are in order if I want to pay my gym dues. I got to make sure my finances are in our order if I want to pay my licensing and registration fees, stuff like that. So I know it doesn't have a lot to do with it, and I'll ask it and see if you even want to touch on this or not, but do you see how it can help, or has it helped? Has fighting helped you in a way to where you're like, okay, I need to either take this job, get this promotion, do this thing to make sure that the rest of my life is balanced?
Yes. Well, so as you know, I actually just the other day left my job as a car salesman because I'm starting school next month, and I'm going into fighting has helped, because when I was selling cars, as you know, I didn't come in the gym for the last 2-3 months. Like, I was slacking big time. I was working out at EOS and Vasa and like hitting some stuff at home, the Bob stand.
Right.
But I decided that, going back to the regret thing, this year, I want to have at least one amateur fight if I can get. I'm just starting small with realistic goals. I want one amateur fight at least. The route I was going in car sales, and I'm bringing this full circle, you asked me, how does boxing help financially? Well, I'm looking at it as like, car sales is great. You can make money fast.
Yeah.
But I've decided that one, I want to set myself up for the future with a career field like cybersecurity that I'm going to do.
Right.
That is always in demand, and there's always job openings. You go on Indeed, there's hundreds of them, and so I also did that because I decided if I'm going to get any better at boxing, I need to invest time into it. That's the only way you're going to get better. You've got to spar. You have to keep sparring, and I haven't been doing enough of it.
Right.
And so this is just me being like real and just keeping it honest with you. And so I decided that I wanted more money and a better career and more hours of free time to get better at this sport.
Absolutely.
And so boxing pushed me. Also, I needed to leave car sales. It just wasn't really doing good for me mentally, mental health wise.
Yeah.
It's a stressful job. But I wanted to do something that makes me happy and then have time on the side to pursue a passion of boxing.
Yep.
Am I going to hold the WBC belt in the heavyweight class? Probably not. But I do know that it's something that makes me happy. And so I'm investing in a career that's going to allow me to pursue that. That's where it's helped me financially. Right. And then also, when you're really in the flow of boxing and you're like going to the gym consistently, I do love that I come in this glove room and it motivates me to make more money so that way I can like afford the boxing equipment and the things that I need.
Right.
That kind of sounds dumb the way I put it, but one day I do want to own those Cleto Reyes gloves up there and things like that. But another reason that boxing is good financially is once you buy a good pair of gloves, once you invest in a good pair of like shoes, you have your groin guard, you have your headgear. It's a relatively inexpensive sport.
It is.
And all you need is a partner or a
Yeah.
coach, and that's pretty much, and that's why powerlifting was great too. All you really need is a gym membership, some chucks, and a singlet, and you're good. And then for the meantime, until you can afford your own customized belt, you can borrow one from the gym. Just don't get staff like.
Yeah, and I think the thing about a lot of people are like, oh, I mean, you're working for boxing? You're just trying to make money for boxing? Statistically speaking, people who work out regularly make more money. Mm-hmm. Just period. Like, if you were to take and I haven't done the research, I probably should. I wish I had someone, hey, get these numbers. But I'm pretty firm behind these numbers. Like, people who work out, or let's just take millionaires, multimillionaires, even if it's just walking around the block every day, or they hire a personal trainer to come over 3 times a week. Successful people work out regularly. Mm-hmm. Financially successful people work out regularly. Mm-hmm. And that's hard to dispute. And so the fact of the matter is, it's like, okay, so yeah, we got some goals to get our ducks in a row, to pay our gym memberships, to maybe be able to buy those Cleto Reyes gloves. But for me, it's always been like, I gotta keep working out regularly, whether I'm fighting or not, because successful people work out. They just do.
There's no better way to start the day. Like, I can't tell you how many good days of sales I had in car sales when I went in the morning and trained with Tim.
Yeah.
Like, it's the best way. It gets your blood pumping, because, see, when you're throwing mitts is like one of the best, I believe, activities you can do to start your day. It's cognitively and physically. Yeah. So physically, we know it gets the blood pumping. It's good, great cardio. The best cardio in the world, I think, is mitt work. I mean, you're moving your feet, so you're working on your feet and hand coordination, your hand-eye coordination. But also on top of that, cognitively, it's a good way to start your day. Just like doing like a Sudoku puzzle, which I like doing those to warm my brain up. Because Tim's saying like 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, and then you're forced early in the morning at 6:30, 7 a.m. to fire up those synapses that are telling you like, okay, the 1, the 2, 3.
It's almost like a new language that you have to learn, and you're trying to throw it as fast as it's coming in. So you're trying to compute these calculations really fast. Sorry about that.
Yeah, and Tim, Tim is like has a unique style of mitt work. Every coach has their own style of throwing mitts. You watch Canelo's coach, his like, he'll just do a little tap and then they take breaks in between, like a little break in between combos. I really like Tim's style of mitt work because he flusters you on purpose and he's doing it to keep you moving and keep your brain going like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2. But I like the way he does it because he's challenging you to incorporate all these different things. Okay, I got to move forward and then I got to do this and I got to twist. So I love the chaos of mitt work and like the cognitive warm up that it brings to your morning. And going back to the successful people thing, I've had seriously the best car sales days where I sell the most cars, where I have my 2, 3, or my hat trick days.
Yeah.
It's when I've sparred or when I've done boxing in the morning, because I get all my frustrations out. I always say that my Bob stand is my therapist,
Right.
My second therapist. And so, but yeah, like, Eric, I just think that I really look up to you and Tim as people. Like, that's why I stayed at this gym. And for any parents that are listening out there wondering, like, thinking like, I don't want my kid, he'll become more violent. That is not the case. Eric teaches a class full of little kids in the afternoon. This is one of the best places to come. It's humbling. It'll teach you life skills, financial skills. It'll teach you anger management, everything.
Right.
It's just like it's a beautiful sport, whether you're doing MMA or jiu-jitsu or boxing. It's a beautiful sport because it's the ultimate personal development sport. And I will highly encourage it to any parent out there who's on the fence about letting their kid do it. Your kid will come back more calm, more rational, more clear in thought. And I promise you, like, it'll become an addiction. This is my magnificent obsession now.
Right.
I love the challenge of coming in here and getting better every time. Whether it started back when I was trying to get better at the speed bag. The speed bag, like, is a good example. Like, it started out, okay, I'm going to do one hand, and then slowly switch over to this hand. And then it became, okay, next time I'm going to do this. And now, now I'm able to work on all these weird, tricks and stuff.
Combos and stuff. So real quick, and I probably want to end on this note. We glanced over spiritual real quick. And I kind of let you glance over real quick because spiritual is actually my favorite thing to talk about. Let's go back to spiritual. Where are you at on your spiritual journey? Are you happy with where you're at? Do you have goals to get places? Spiritually, I guess maybe simply put, where are you at? Where you want to go? Are you content? Or is there still like these yearning questions that you have, want to find out answers to? And I'll just ask that question.
I love that question because the answer is I'm never content. I always hold myself to high standards, and I always think that I can do better.
Right.
The minute that I think that I've got it all figured out or that I think I can't get any better, I'm screwed, right? There's always room for improvement, financially, physically, spiritually. So to cover all aspects of what you're saying, I do have goals, and I'm not satisfied yet. I'm very happy where I'm at.
So you say you're not satisfied yet. What sort of spiritual goals, spiritual questions, spiritual place, where is it that you want to be and what things you want to know?
I want to know what life's about. I haven't really learned. I don't think I fully know the answer to that. I kind of am close to an answer, which is I really think overall, so far I've learned it's about being the best possible version of yourself you can be.
Right.
Being happy. I mean, my gosh, I think there's a famous quote, like, most men live quiet lives of desperation.
Yeah.
And it's because everybody's just doing this stuff that just, for their spirituality, it just kills you. They're not in touch with a higher power. They're not, and any religion, any book, or any like spirituality that helps you get closer to your happiness or to your goals, I support it. If that's going to Catholic Mass, if that's going to an LDS religion, or LDS church for a sacrament meeting, so be it. So for me, spiritually, like I'll just go ahead and say I keep this part of my life private, but for my higher power, I have my own version of prayer. I say prayers every day. Sometimes just inside, like quiet if I forgot when I get to work.
Real quick, do you think the prayers help?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I've had too many things happen in my life that have indicated that there's something out there looking out for me.
Right.
I would not be where I'm at today if it weren't for something looking out for me. Adding a little bit of extra help. Yes, I've had to put in the footwork, but there's always just been something there that I felt like kept me out of certain situations that now I'm here today and I'm better for it. to make it through my childhood, which was a living hell, to make it through times in the military that were rough, where I missed my family and like all this other stuff. And there's certain things that fell into place that tell me something's out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can only think that it can't do any harm. Right. Even if there was no higher power that existed, nothing's out there. We just take a dirt nap after this is done. Mm-hmm. It can't do you wrong to get down on your knees or however you say prayer. It can't do you wrong. And so that's where, yeah, that's to answer your question.
Yeah, I've thought about that, and I've always kind of told myself, like, even if I knew 100%, no doubt, that there was no God, I would still live my life as if there was one. Mm-hmm. I think there's a greater happiness in living as if there is a creator, setting goals to help appease the greater good of just good to humanity. And so, like, now, to set the record straight, I 100% believe that there's a higher power. I don't know if you guys know, I even wrote a book on it. It's called Fighting to Find God. You can buy it on Amazon. But at the end of the day, like, I 100% believe and know through prayer and spiritual personal experiences that there is a God, there is a creator. That creator is a higher power and has a plan for us. We can go down different avenues of religion saying, well, this one says the plan is this, and this one says the plan is that. That the thing is, we don't know. We don't know. But we can know that there is a God. And I think that's the important thing, is that we can know that there's a God. We may not know the exact plan, and the fact of the matter is, I don't think we'll ever know the plan. Mm-hmm. To think that you can step on stage with God and be like, now I know God perfectly, and I know the whole thing. It's like, that's crazy talk.
Well, there's a you know, without getting too much into it, you know, I have my opinions about the Bible and the Old Testament and the New Testament, but one of the stories I enjoy that I really relate to is the prodigal son. Yeah. Without getting too personal, that story like really resonates with me because I made a lot of bad decisions in my life, and I went out and I spent all my riches. And when I was finally able to come to grips with that, I need to kill the ego a little bit. Yeah. That I need to repair the relationship with my grandparents and with my family. When I went out after I spent all my money and I came back, I felt so much better. You know, and coming to grips with like just killing all the dumb stuff I was doing off and getting it out of my life, surrounding myself with better people. I relate to that story a lot. I am the true living proof of the prodigal son. I've had to go to drug rehab. I've been arrested. I've been to jail. And at the end of the day, like there's some things in the Bible that I relate to that I really like, and I feel like the prodigal son is a beautiful story, and I've been there down that road. And to kind of end on that note spiritually, I think that, you know, I'm always here if people out there need advice or like need help. I've been there before. There's no obstacle that is too much to overcome. I've overcome an abusive childhood, and I've overcome physical, mental, and financial struggle. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a perfect person, but I have made great strides and try my best. That's all you can do, is just give everything your best effort, and live by the 4 agreements, you know, like the book says. Just don't make assumptions, like don't carry other people's crap, you know, like that's their dark energy to carry. Like, don't let other people affect their opinions or what they have to say affect you, and just be impeccable with your word, and always give your best effort. Yeah. And I've never gone wrong with giving my best effort, and that's why I'm here boxing. That's why I'm here hanging out with Tim and with Eric as much as I can, because I soak it all in. And that's the last thing I have to say, is that birds of a feather flock together. So if you want to win, hang out with winners. And Eric's been on The Ultimate Fighter. I've told my roommates before when we've talked about Eric, like, I look up to Eric a lot. I think it's so cool that you're on The Ultimate Fighter. I mean, you know, if you ever come to the gym one day and talk to Eric, ask him how hard it is to make it even on the show. Yeah. To even make it to that first fight, to see if you make it in the house. You have to win a grappling tournament. You have to box. You have to Muay Thai. I mean, so that's why I surround myself with these people, because they're much more experienced than me, and in all those aspects we talk about. So I really appreciate this conversation. It's been awesome.
Michael, it's been great having you. Thank you. Like, this has been a great interview. Thank you so much, Mike. Don't forget to like, subscribe. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Questions, comments, concerns, and I'm sure Mike will see it, and we can reach out and answer any questions anybody might have. But Mike, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks
I
for coming
appreciate
on.
it. Thanks for
joining
listening,
us.
guys.
Fight City Gym Talk.
Come
Thank
sign
you.
up.